What is up, all of you beautiful beautiful nerds from around the world? You know what happens when you're live streaming and you fumble like that? You just keep going. Anyways, what's up, everybody? I am, of course, Josh. This is the Den of Nerds. If you're watching this on the replay, happy Memorial Day to you. If you're watching this live, if you're coming in, happy Memorial Day to you. A lot of people made a great real life sacrifice so that we can do a bunch of the cool things that we do, pursue our passions, do the cool things that we do here on this channel. And so we owe an unpayable debt to these people. So thank you out there if you are one of those people that have served. If you've known someone like that, thank you, thank you, thank you. Last night, guys, HBO aired a little documentary film called The Last Watch. This thing was really, really cool. It was sort of like an extra episode of Game of Thrones for people. It was kind of a cathartic thing, too. I felt like it was a nice, we didn't necessarily get the ending that we wanted from Game of Thrones, but we got that awesome little end cap note, which I think in a lot of ways reminded us all why we love the show so much and just how much of an impact the show has made to different people. It's pretty crazy, actually. Now, one of the discussions, there's like two big discussions that are being had with this thing. Number one, did this explain anything? Did this explain anything as far as what actually happened in the last season, the behind-the-scenes stuff? There's still a lot of mystery there. People are curious about what went on. Wow, Joshua, that's sad, man. That's terrible. That's terrible. My heart goes out to you, man. Kate, the documentary is pretty cool. What's up, Dale? So I don't really think there's much that I can spoil for the doc, though. If you haven't seen the doc, I mean, I would watch it. And here's where I'll say we'll just go super casual with this, kind of just go where the conversation takes us. But the one thing that I would say right away about the documentary was it's really good. Like, whoever this lady is that made this documentary, she deserves a lot of credit. This documentary is amazing. Just when you compare it to other docs and stuff like that, I think you can clearly see. I mean, just little shots, little pickups here and there, the music, the way she was able to capture these candid moments. What a cool documentary. Yeah, if you guys could like the stream, that would be really cool too. It'd be really helpful. Actually, I have to get better at that in general because apparently likes are really... they're way more important than they used to be. So on every video now, I'm going to have to remind everyone to like the video. Yeah, Kate, yeah, totally. And you will really like it. It is really, really good. So there's two discussions that are going on here, guys, and I'll kind of keep it a little bit more on topic, especially for people that are coming in watching the replay. The one discussion is, does this documentary explain at all? Were we able to garner any information about what exactly happened with rushing the season, why that happened? Is it for Star Wars? Did Dan and Dave screw everybody over? No George in that documentary at all. Very interesting stuff there. So that's one of the conversations, and we'll get into that. Another one of the conversations is, there's been a lot of talk about Game of Thrones in a lot of different ways. People sort of, bad-mouthing Dan and Dave, maybe even bad-mouthing HBO for certain things, like, a lack of female representation in, the writing and in the directing. There's been talk of this fan petition and how fans have reacted to the last season, and sort of the cast and the crew feel sort of betrayed by this. And, Sophie Turner came out and made this big statement about it. And a lot of people have been saying the same thing. They just can't believe that people are reacting this way. And I will say that it's really interesting to go from last week where we get the ending and, we all are pretty upset, for the most part about what went down. And then you cut into this stuff and you see just how many people have worked so hard and how many different kinds of people have worked so hard to make this thing what it is, to give us this thing, man, this totally thing of fiction. It's really interesting. The documentary was so good, man. I like teared up a couple of different times. It was It was really good. It was really good, and just seeing all of the actors respond. One of my favorite moments, and you'll see this all over the internet today, is Kit Harington did not read the script for the ending. He didn't read the scripts before the first table read, and so the first time that he knows that he kills Daenerys, he he witnesses that, and it's really cool. Like they catch it all on camera, like him reacting to it, him and Amelia having their back and forth because she has read it already, and she's kind of like, yeah, yeah, no, I know. Um, a lot of really cool moments like that, right? So I think that the biggest thing to come out of this, and I think what I've seen on Reddit and what I've seen on people on Twitter and everything, the biggest thing to come out of this is, man, we should really be grateful. We should sort of maybe be a little bit more strategic with the outrage, because ultimately these people gave so much of their time and their energy and their life to create this thing and to make this thing and to make it really good. Now, one of the other things that's interesting about this is that sort of segues into one of the possible explanations for why the season was so rushed. So several times in the documentary, they sort of make this mention of the fact that they were like at capacity, the fact that they have sort of been doing everything they had done was sort of training for this last season, and to do it on the scope and on the scale that they wanted to do, that it would have been next to impossible to do that stretched across 10 episodes, and it would have been really impossible to do that again and again and again. And so to do 10 seasons of 10 episodes and bringing this kind of workload to it, would have been next to impossible. So I'm interested to see what you guys think about that. Please let me know in the chat, and let me know in the comment section too, if you're watching this on the replay. What do you think about that? If you've seen the documentary, do you agree, or are you starting to come around to this idea that they needed to shorten this season simply because of what they were trying to accomplish, what they were trying to do? Okay, so that's one thing that kind of came out. Another thing that was really interesting, the actor that plays Varys, or Lord Varys, when you watch the table read, he is not into that shit. Not at all. He does not like what's going on. You can see a ton of different things. When Arya kills the Night King, everyone's cheering, and he's just like, nah. All these sort of different things that are going on the table read, and he's just like, nah. And then ultimately, there's the meme that's going around, or sort of the GIF at this point, of him closing his script and kind of tossing it onto the table before the scene is even finished, when Daenerys is melting him. Now, a lot of people have sort of carried on that and picked up on that as sort of, wow, like, look, this guy's kind of speaking for us. And there's a lot of, like, subculture, shit posting, a lot of like interesting things going online with the hatred for this last season. So, man, what a weird, interesting time. What a weird, interesting thing to be a part of. And I wanted to do this fan chat today, and honestly, like, we didn't clickbait at all. You know what I mean? Like, the thumbnail's not clickbait. Like, the title's not clickbait. Like, I didn't really want to clickbait at all. I wanted to just kind of have a conversation with people that really follow the channel and that have been hanging out here. So I'm really interested. Please, drop some questions, guys. We can get right into Q&A and just sort of take this any which direction. But my big takeaways from the documentary was, if these guys, I really hope that this team, a lot of the people that were involved here, and I'm talking about the costume people in particular, that like husband and wife team, like, dude, that lady is so sweet and just endearing, and she works really hard. And, there's just so many people that were involved in that team, in that production team, that, like, if those are the people that would be making the new Star Wars, like, so if Dan and Dave are writing and producing new Star Wars, and those are the people that are going to be coming and bringing this thing to life, then, like, I feel pretty good about that. These are some amazing people. Like, these are some absolutely amazing people. Now, a lot of things about the documentary are sort of giving people some ammunition against Dan and Dave. There were logistical things that happen, like, for instance, while filming The Long Night, there was something that was said by Miguel Sapochnik where he basically said like, well, it's Dan and Dave's fault really, talking about some of the logistical errors in shooting at night for that long. And essentially, like what he's kind of explaining is that Dan and Dave just kept wanting to up the ante, up the ante, up the ante, just keep going and going, and they sort of pushed that crew to shoot for those, what was it, 23 weeks or something like that. And I mean, that must have been hell for those guys, and such a crazy, ridiculous thing to expect. Now, apparently, the rumor is, or maybe this was in the doc and I missed it, but people were talking about this online. Kit Harington apparently said that Dan and Dave were only there once a week during the night shoots. So during that whole night shoots and stuff, they were only there once a week. Really interesting, right? Really, really interesting. And you see Dan and Dave a lot in the doc, but you also don't see Dan and Dave in the doc. What I like about that is it gave us a chance to recognize and celebrate all of these other amazing creative people that work on the show. But it also had this feeling of like an absentee father, like these absentee parents from this thing. And they particularly did not explain anything. So a lot of people hungered for some sort of an explanation, some more insight into why the season was so short, why certain things happened, like for instance the water bottle stuff. Not that they necessarily owe us an excuse in a documentary. A documentary is a documentary. She made her film. It's great. But I think from HBO's perspective and from the perspective of the fans, it's another sort of not reading the room correctly. It's another sort of just tone deaf kind of thing, with HBO. I almost feel like, I know, right? When the Bolton jacket thing. Yeah. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. One of the things I almost feel, and I don't know if this would ever work or not, but I almost felt like instead of this, they should have pushed this back one more week. And then this week, they should have done a Comic-Con style panel where Dan and Dave and the cast come out and take questions from the fans via the internet, Twitter, Instagram, whatever, YouTube, from the fans, and have a moderator and a curator and pick good questions. You don't have to make yourself look like but at the same time address some of these issues and come right out and say certain things. I feel like that would have been that would have done much more for the brand and for the fan base than this documentary, even though this documentary is amazing. So that's kind of where I am at with it, guys. Please feel free to drop some questions into the chat. I know we're kind of light today, but go ahead and feel free to drop some questions into the chat. Yeah, Vera's tossing the script. Yeah, pretty cool moment. Pretty cool moment. You gotta think. I would be really curious to know how he actually felt about it. You know what I mean? They would have been ripped to pieces, though. Crea Jobston says. I mean, but that's the thing. You can still have control in that type of a setting. So, like, you can have a moderator. You should have started taking questions on, like, Tuesday. And then you get all these questions. You start to go through them. And you strategically pick a nice phrased question that addresses some of the things that a lot of people are asking about. You don't have to make yourself look super bad. They would have gotten a lot of negativity. But I think they knew they were going to get a lot of negativity. I think they should have been prepared for the negativity. They should have been able to defend their ending as while maybe not being happy, but like satisfying, especially to certain characters. So that, in my opinion, would have been better. If you concentrate on the bad, you'll only see bad. If you look at it with an open mind, you might understand more about what happened. It's done. It won't be undone. Just my 2 coppers. Yeah, Dale, I totally get you. And ultimately, where I've sort of fallen on this thing and where I think I'm a guy that liked almost everything in the show. I liked all the way up until after John kills Danny and then they get into the council scene. I think I just can't defend the council scene and I can't defend Bran as king. Does it completely ruin my experience for the show? No, but pretty close. Pretty close. And I'm just speaking just as, I mean, I'm not even that hardcore of a fan. You know what I mean? Like I like I said, I like things that a lot of other people do not like. But that ending, I just think the scene is so poorly done, so poorly done, and Bran as king is just so out of left field. It's so whack. The way I see it, after seeing that King's Landing set, no one can say they didn't give a shit and rush the season. No, they certainly care. They certainly care. And I don't know if they didn't rush making this season. They rushed the narrative, right? Like they rushed the way that it all happened from the character's perspective. And that's kind of undeniable in my opinion. Yes, Maverick Pilgrim says, I cannot imagine the pressure ending this big of a TV show beyond Martin's finished novels. I feel like there was no way to make everyone happy, whatever they choose to do. Yeah, for sure. Clyde Foster says, much love, Josh. Nerd up. Thank you, man. Appreciate that. You know, it's interesting that Maverick, you bring up a really good point, right? So they had to finish the most popular show of all time without the adapted material. And that's why I keep telling people, like, George is not innocent in this scenario. Everybody loves George, especially in the Song of Ice and Fire community. They all love George and they hate Dan and Dave. Like, I'm sorry. I just don't think it's that simple, man. Like, I think that there's a lot of blame to be laid at the feet of George R.R. Martin. Just me personally. When Bran said something like, why do you think I traveled all this way? Yeah, Jack, that's the most uncharacteristic line of dialogue ever. But again, you see, this is what's so funny. So, like, the conversation, we're talking about this documentary and we're trying to be positive and we're focusing on all this stuff. And it just keeps going back to some of the huge mistakes of the show. You know what I mean? It just keeps coming. It keeps circling back to that. You know, I asked a lot of my friends about whether or not they were going to watch the documentary. Not a lot of them did. Not a lot of them did. Most of them said, no, I don't care about Game of Thrones now. Like, at all. It's hard to say. You know what I mean? It's hard to say how bad this backlash is, how much damage has been done to the brand. Was it always going to be this way? But I got to say, you know, A Song of Ice and Fire, there's a lot of cool stuff going on in there, but it's always been character based. So the lore is cool, but the lore has never been a big draw to me. Now, I know a lot of A Song of Ice and Fire fans love the lore. They love the prophecies. They love all this stuff. Kind of seems like it amounted to nothing in the show, at least. So, yeah. KECM 1936. Do you feel like they left a lot unsaid? I'm not sure what you mean. You mean in the show or you mean in the doc? Because in the show, for sure. I mean, there's so much that's left unsaid. You don't even know why all of the lords are there at the end of the show. You don't know if they know Jon's heritage. You don't know if the letters from Varys went out. You know nothing, Jon Snow, except it's like, instead of Jon Snow, it's like the audience. You know nothing, the audience. If he knew everything all along, knowing he'd be on the throne, that'd make him about the most evil character ever. Exactly. Exactly. You know what else, too? Somebody said this, too, recently. They were like, I don't think Dan and Dave knew that Bran was going to be king when they removed him from the show for a season. Remember, the old conversations about Bran used to be like, where the hell's Bran? And then most people were like, who cares? You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. We'll see. Hey, we'll see how George gets there. And we will see how they do with the prequel series and how all of this goes down. I got to be honest. I'm going to watch the prequel series. I'm so, like, I'm still pumped, but man, my energy is down for it. I'm not as pumped. You know what I mean? Yeah, Maverick, I agree. Jack Trey's music. Yeah, doing the thing. Yeah, he could definitely be anyone and do what he did. It's tough, man. It's tough. I am very curious. Just as a fan of pop culture, as a fan of this kind of stuff, and obviously what we do here on the channel and everything. Very interested to see. I mean, hopefully the prequel show is popping. We could do some prequel content over here. You know what I mean? Like I'm down for all of that. I think that would be really, really fun. And I'm hoping that it stays really big. I'm obviously, just because I'm a huge Star Wars fan, I'm way more curious about what Dan and Dave do with Star Wars and how all of that is going to work. I really hope that some of these people that were in this documentary are involved in Star Wars. I really hope so. It's 3 years. They got a lot of time, a lot of stuff to develop. Eddie White, remember when HBO said season 8 was 6 2-hour movies? Well, I could be wrong here, Eddie, but I believe HBO said there were going to be 6 feature length, 6 episodes that are equivalent to a feature length film. That's what they said. I don't think they ever got specific and said they were going to be 2 hours. And I think I remember them saying that it was only going to be 8 episodes at first, and then they cut it to 6 or something. I don't know for sure. But yeah, lots of yeah, the White Walker Blue Eyes. That would have been a dope ending. Yeah. That would have been really cool. Guys, I'm only going to go for probably like 20 more minutes. It's just like super casual, kind of easy peasy chat today. Just chilling on Memorial Day. About to leave, actually. Feel free to get your questions in. Oh, yes, Tilted Haze. Yeah. You're explaining like the Bran is the Night King ending, I think. Yeah, get stuck in the Night King. Yeah, we've done videos on that. We've done a lot of theory videos on that. It was a very popular theory. 'Twas very popular. Dude, the guy that plays the Night King is awesome. Just a fun-loving dude. Very, very cool. Oh, you know what? Can I say one other thing too here? Let me just go on a little bit of a rant here for a second. So, one of the things that's like so weird to me is that they claim, and they did all these things where they took the actors, like they took Jon Snow to the final conversation. They had the Night King there. They took all of these actors to this big end scene, and they did all of that to try and throw people off. Right? Hey, no worries, man. No worries. Have a good day. Um, they tried to do all of this. Oh yeah, Danny being resurrected by the Lord of Light. I heard about that theory too. They try to do all this stuff with the actors to get them to throw people off, right? But what's frustrating about that is like none of that worked. Like, dude, this is another thing that I complain about. These studios do not understand, and these production studios do not understand how these leaks happen and how it disseminates and where the theories come from and things like that. And so, like, we had already had the whole season leaked. Those actors showing up for that scene in Belfast doesn't mean anything. Maybe a little bit it could throw off some paparazzi, some of the mainstream people out there. But like, are they not reading the blogs? Are they not going to Watchers on the Wall? Are they not watching Alt Shift X and all these different channels and things like that? Like, don't they realize that everybody already knows? So what you got to do is you got to go back. You don't get all the actors to show up to the final thing, even though they're not in the scene. You have several different sets of storyboards. You get different production companies from the very beginning to do stuff that doesn't matter. If you want to trick the internet, you have to figure out how the internet is getting its information, how it's cross-referencing it, and how it's extrapolating that information, juxtaposing it against the other things that are out there and sort of crafting what will happen. I wish studios would do that. I really do. Because one of the worst things of Thrones is that I've known pretty much what will happen in the last 2 seasons from leaks and stuff. Now, I've tried to avoid it, but you get, especially in the circles that I run in and the things that I do, you get sort of exposed to it inadvertently. Maverick, that's a good question. How is this kind of ending to Game of Thrones going to impact other fantasy shows upcoming, like The Middle Earth or Amazon's upcoming The Wheel of Time series? It's hard to say. I mean, the show itself is still, you still have to consider it incredibly successful. What will be more of a lesson to people is what happens afterwards. I think between Star Wars The Last Jedi and what's going on with the Star Wars fan base right now, which is like still hard to quantify. The weirdest thing to me is that it's still hard to exactly quantify how much damage that film did to the brand and how much Star Wars needs to recover from that and from certain things that happened in that movie and post that movie, because the way Disney responded to the criticism of that film is in some ways worse than what happened in that movie. So it will be interesting to see what's going on with Dan and Dave, the whole cast, the crew, everybody. How much of this hate will be accepted later? Now, the one thing that I'll say is that the Game of Thrones show has always predicated itself on heartbreak. It's always breaking the hearts of its audience. Okay? And so I think that at the end of the day, even though people are still going to be upset and definitely not like that it was rushed and this, that, and the other thing, they will get a little bit more accepting of the ending and just be like, yeah, no, guess that kind of fits for Thrones. I hated it. Like that, right? Whereas somebody like a character like Luke Skywalker, who after 40 years you sort of turn and do different things with him, people are going to reject that. It's just not in a line with what they've known for so long. This kind of is in a line with what we've known for so long. The heartbreak, the shock, all of that. So it will be interesting to see how much of the hatred for this thing affects how these other companies approach their shows. The Lord of the Rings show, big mystery there. Not really sure what's going on. In fact, is that a prequel? I think it's a prequel show, right? Like it's way before the events of the Hobbit even, I think. Yeah. So it will be interesting. Wheel of Time, I'm not super familiar with. I like Brandon Sanderson, but I've never read much Jordan, and I've never read The Wheel of Time. So, yeah, not really sure what they're going to do with that as far as lore and all that. But I'm excited to see it. Yeah, Maverick, that's a good point, right? And this is something that's like, it's really hard to sort of parse and figure out, right? Like the rage online, you can't just succumb to all of that, right? But I kind of hate that argument. I kind of hate when people say that, because it's like, I hear people and personalities say this, was like, dude, it's gone too far. Fans and their demands and the rage that fans have has gone too far. Has it really? Or is some of this founded? Do you know what I mean? Like, oh man, I can't believe it. We can't just have all of these fans out there affect the show. Well, you're definitely not going to let them write the show. Most of them can't write at all. They have really no concept of what it takes to make a show. But what they do is watch the show and choose to continue to watch it or not, whether they're excited about it. Are they going to be excited enough to go out and make some purchases? From the branding perspective, from the perspective of the audience is the customer, yeah, give the audience what they want. You know what I mean? Look at Marvel. It's not that hard to figure out. And even though Endgame sort of broke the mold and broke a lot of hearts and did things that people are still really upset about, it did not have anywhere near the type of reception and response that a lot of these other movies and twists and big things have had. And that is because they built up the goodwill with their customers. They gave the customers what the customers wanted. You know what I mean? So I'm not sure. Like, I feel you there, Maverick, but I sort of, every time I hear a personality or someone online say that, like, nerd rage is out of control, man. These companies, I'm afraid for these companies and these creatives. They're not going to be able to be creative anymore. I'm like, what? I don't know about that. Yeah. Yeah, Maverick. I mean, well, what we do here is really nuance and actual conversation. And, we're just like a family and we just like talk about these things for sure. I'm definitely not any kind of authority on that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? But I just think that from my perspective, it's like, you don't draw that line in the sand. Maybe instead of saying, like, if I was someone that worked at like Disney with Star Wars or Game of Thrones or something like that, like, I wouldn't come out and make statements like that. Like, I wouldn't come out and say, we can't worry about what the fans want. We got to worry about what we want to do. Nah, dude, I wouldn't say that. Are you kidding me? I would be like, look, we owe the fans a lot, and we want to give the fans what they are owed. But the story itself cannot be guided by their desires. And I think that even honestly, if you ask them about it, they wouldn't want it to be. because part of the joy is seeing how it happens, right? Way better answer. Way better answer. What's up, Yova? Way better answer than what I hear some of these people saying. All right, guys, I'm only going for 10 more minutes. 10 more minutes, and we're going to get off of here. Like I said, this is just a really small, casual, non-clickbait live stream. I didn't even try to clickbait any part of this. We'll be back to normal tomorrow, though. We will be back tomorrow with our regularly scheduled programming. The last watch really teared me up after the actors realized their character's fate. Yeah. It's such a good documentary. I hope that lady wins some awards. That was great. Yes, Vastion Creed says, I think the rage for Game of Thrones stems specifically from the obvious rush on the final season. I think that a lot of the places where the characters ended up made sense, but getting them there was too fast. Yeah, but we still do not know why the season was rushed. Here's the thing. You hear stuff online. We don't know. We don't know. Dan and Dave continuously say, we have always imagined it as 73 hours. George has come out and said he wanted a lot more seasons. HBO has come out and said that they wanted 10 episodes in this season, but I do not know if HBO exactly wanted to go 10 seasons with 10 episodes at this scale, because those actors, you have to continuously, I don't know what the contracts are, but I'm assuming you pay them more and more and more and more. That's usually how television works. So at this point, they're paying oodles of money every single episode for everything, cast, crew, effects, everything, just racking up that bill. Not to mention that doing this for decade, man. I mean, come on. Was it rushed? Yes, but we don't know exactly why it was rushed. Every single person that probably worked on that show wanted it to be rushed and also didn't want it to be rushed. Now, the difference is with us, we didn't work on it. We don't care. We just want more. Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know. It's a tricky situation. It's a tricky situation. That's why, I always say, when I've been talking to people about this, I say, look, when they realized that George was not going to finish these books, and they had the meeting where George told them the ending, it is at the same time then that George did not direct or write any episodes. It is the same point when he sort of really distanced himself from the show. The show itself took on a new life. They took extra long to develop some things. Season 5 was totally terrible. Season 5 is ass. And the question for me is, what happened in that meeting? I cannot fully blame Dan and Dave. I just can't. They signed on to adapt works of fiction, and halfway through realized that the works of fiction were over. Now, George's argument, apparently, was there's enough material in the books right now to stretch it out, and then I'll finish these books. But who knows, man? I mean, who knows? Who's really to blame there? We don't know. Thank you, Bastian. George's last 2 books are going to be very interesting, and see what the author had in mind planned for his franchise. Well, see, that's another thing. How much does George have planned? George is a gardener. George has a vague idea of where the characters will end up, but he likes to just get in there and work it out, do it with the characters. You know what I mean? That's why his books are so epic and sprawling. And he's really, really smart and meticulous with the way he ties things together and his notes and everything like that. But he fucks up all the time in his own books. He clearly he's had characters. He talks about it. He's very open about it. He had characters in his first book that had green eyes, I think, and then later the character had blue eyes. I mean, he's not perfect. You know what I mean? So it's interesting it will be very interesting to know how these books end up going, whether or not people really like them. I think they'll sell a lot more now because of what happened in the end with the ending of the show. But I can't exactly say that I'm expecting them to be mind blowing and to make everyone happy. I don't think so. And again, dude's had 8 years. 8 years. Finish your books, George. Finish your books. Yeah, he's developing 5 television shows right now. Motherfucker's, sorry, I shouldn't swear. Homie is developing 5 shows right now? 5 shows right now. And you couldn't finish these books? I'm not, I gotta be honest. I'll just say it for those of you that are in the chat right now because, it's a small chat, as I keep saying, clickbait free. Coming to you Monday, Memorial Day, clickbait free. I'm not a big fan of George Martin. I'm not a big fan of George Martin. There, I said it. I've said it. I'm sorry. Whoa, Vashian Creed coming in hot with the super chat. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. You can put when we do bigger streams that are more clickbaity and stuff, and we get more people in here. I answer like every single super chat that comes in, so you can put like little questions in there too. And when the chat's really popping, we've got like 300 or 400 people in here. I just can't get to everybody's question, so it's easier to use the super chat function. But I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you. I'm going to get out of here in just a little bit, guys. Feel free to drop me any questions that you have, just pretty much about anything. At this point, we're just chatting. Yeah, right. ASMR. Yeah, to George. Yeah. Kind of. A little bit. Finish your books, George. Apparently, he's pretty involved in the prequel series, too, so we'll see about that. I mean, I gotta be honest here. Like, what if the prequel series kind of sucks? Yova says, Josh, hope you do a Raylo live stream next time and talk more about the Vanity Fair covers. I gotta be honest, Yova, I don't really think I'm gonna do a Raylo live stream. At least not anytime soon. I'm not even really a Raylo shipper anymore. I gotta be honest, Yova. I know that might break your heart, but it's true. I like the idea of those two together. I want those two. I like the idea of their attraction to each other, but I don't need them to end up together, and I don't know if they will end up together. I mean, I know what ASMR is. I don't know what it stands for. There's like amplified sound something recording. Something like that. Something like that. It's when people get like really high level microphones and they'll do the like crinkling of paper or like some people have a response to amplified sounds like that. They get like tingles or something like that, I guess. That's the theory anyway. Dale Erdman says, what if Ryan, Dan, and Dave are doing 6 future episodes of Star Wars? But Bob said, I think you're referring to Bob Iger when you say that. Yeah. What's up, Second Street Marvel? How you doing? How you guys doing? Or is it just you? Or is it just you, my friend? Oh, really? I don't think their attraction needs to be romantic. I think their attraction is romantic, but in romantic in the sense that it is sort of there's like a sexual undertone to it. You know what I mean? But that's almost all I need. There's a lot. Like the thing is, it's funny because like I just said, I'm not going to do a Raylo live stream, but I will do a Raylo live stream eventually, and I'll talk a lot about it, about my feelings about it, and where we're at in the fan base. Just the truth of the matter is, there's just way more to navigate with what's going on in Star Wars. And to be frank, the Raylo community I'm not super pumped about some of the things that the Raylo community has done, and there's some people that are in that fan base that are crazy. And I don't know how to navigate that exactly. But I like a lot about the attraction, I really do. But I just don't think it's going to be this thing that a lot of the people, a lot of the Raylos out there are like, they're just diehard about this one thing happening. They see it this one way and they do not see it any other way. And be damned if you don't see it the way they see it. That's how I feel about Raylos. And I'm like, just leave me alone then. Just leave me alone. Just being real. Just being real. All right, guys. Well, thank you guys so much for hanging out and just chatting about this. If you're watching this on the replay, if you made it the whole way through, that's awesome. Thank you. You're probably like a hardcore follower of the channel because, like I said, there's no clickbait on this. So probably a very skippable video. But you guys are amazing. Thanks for being in here. And we'll be back to Nerdy News Rundown tomorrow, regularly scheduled. And then look for some more live stream stuff, some very cool stuff happening very soon on the channel. As I always say, I hope you're having an awesome and a nerdy day, and I'll see you in the next video.